Hi there, boys and girls. I'm here again today to talk to you guys a little bit about our new math topic, which is going to be all about time. Today, we're going to focus on understanding the hour and the minute hand. So on my screen, you'll see our little video here. We're going to walk through it, and I'm going to talk you guys through it as we go through so that you guys can understand exactly what it is we need to learn in this lesson for today. So let's take a look. All right, here's our words to know.
Clock.
Remember to repeat.
Dog. The shorthand is the hour hand.
All right, so when looking at a clock, and I have my big clock here to help us, when looking at a clock like we had in our classroom, there are two hands that are on the clock, and it is pointing out that the hour hand is going to be this shorthand that you see here that's pointing towards the 9.
The hour hand shows the hour. What color is the hour hand on this clock?
So not looking at my example, but on our video, the hour hand right here is that blue arrow that's pointing to the 3.
The hour hand is blue. What number is the hour hand pointing to?
Again, looking at our big clock here, look at the arrow, and it is pointing to what number right there?
The hour hand points to the 3.
And that's what you can see in the video.
The long hand is the minute hand.
Okay, I'm going to pull back up our big clock to look at over here. So we just talked about the hour hand that we see here, and that's going to be the shorter hand. But now the other hand that is on a clock is that bigger hand, and this is called the minute hand.
What color is the minute hand on this clock?
Looking here, looking at that longer hand, what color is it, boys and girls?
The minute hand is red. How can you tell the minute hand from the hour hand?
So let's look at that. If you're comparing, the two hands that are on a clock, there is a big difference. One is our hour hand and one is our minute hand, but I see a big difference in terms of size. Let's take a look at that.
The minute hand is longer. The hour hand is shorter. What number is the minute hand pointing to?
All right, so looking at the clock in the video, that the minute hand is that red long hand that you see. What number is that pointing to?
The minute hand points to the 12. The dog knows that there are 60 minutes in an hour.
So when you're talking about time, it's important to know that there's minutes and there's hours. And in one whole hour, there are 60 minutes. And that's what that dog knows and is pointing out here. So we're going to notice it's very important when you notice that that minute hand, that big red hand, is pointing at the 12. That means you are into a new hour.
Do you know the special word to use when the minute hand points to the 12? Think about it.
I'm sure you've heard it before if you've ever heard or asked someone what time it was.
When the minute hand points to 12, we say o'clock. Why does a clock need 2 hands? Think about it.
Let's think about that for a second. There's 2 hands on every clock that you see, and each hand has its own job to do. So we know that the short hand is our hour hand, and the long hand is our minute hand. Why does a clock need 2 hands?
One shows the hour, and the other shows the minutes.
Which is what we pointed out before. So it's important to know the difference between the 2 hands to help us to be able to tell the time.
How do you know what time the clock shows?
Well, that's what we're going to learn today.
The hour hand points to the 3, so the hour is 3.
Okay, so anytime you want to tell what time it is, you have to see where that short hand is, our hour hand, and see where the arrow is pointing. In this clock in the video, it's pointing to the number 3. So the hour is 3.
The minute hand points to the 12, so you say o'clock.
Now, anytime that you see this big red minute hand pointing to that number 12, which in all of our examples that we're going to see today, it's going to be pointing to the 12th, we're going to say o'clock. So now we need to put the hour hand and the minute hand together, and the time will be 3, pointing to the 12, so we say o'clock. So the time is 3 o'clock.
When you put them together, you say 3 o'clock. Now you know about the hour and minute hands on a clock.
And that is our short little mini lesson for today on telling time. However, because this is a brand new topic for us, I thought that it would be helpful for you guys to see a couple of the terms that we talked about. So I'm going to bring it to a little PowerPoint that I created so that we can do a few examples together and we understand it a little bit better. All right, so let's take a look. All about time. Our new vocabulary words that you're going to see in this chapter. First one, hour hand, which we said is that shorter hand on a clock. We have hour, we have minute hand, which again is the longer hand on the clock, and we also have o'clock. Now we said it always is going to be read as o'clock when our big minute hand is pointing to that number 12, which all of our examples are going to have for today. Let's do a couple of problems together. All right, so taking a look at our guided practice problem number 1, you want to look at the clock and you want to know what time it is just by looking at this clock. So what you need to do is look at that short blue hour hand and the long red minute hand and look where those arrows are pointing to help us to figure out what the time is. So when you look at the hour hand, you look at what number is being shown. And in this case, I see it pointing to the number 4. And our minute hand, again, is going to be pointing to that 12. So when it's pointing to the 12, we say o'clock. So the time is 4 o'clock. And as always, our first example is done for us. Let's take a look at number 2. Again, looking at this green clock that we see here. And then let me play around with this. All right, so that I can write in the answer. All right, so again, we're looking at the hour hand and where it is pointing. So looking at the blue little hand and it is pointing to the number 9. And looking at our red minute hand, again, it's at the 12, so we say o'clock. So the time is 9 o'clock. So we would write that in. Bear with me on the writing. All right, let's see another example, number 3 here. Looking at your clock, you see the short blue hand, that's our hour. Our long red hand, that's our minute. Looking at the blue hand, it shows what hour it is. And in this case, it's pointing to the number 3. So the hour is 3. And the minutes is still pointing to that 12. So we always say that that means o'clock. So the time here is, that's hard, 3 o'clock. Few more examples. It says to draw the hour and minute hands to show the time. So now we need to draw those 2 hands, one short and one long, to show what the time is. Looking at example number 7 here, it says 10 o'clock. So 10 shows the hour. O'clock shows the minute. So our if we use our big clock that we have here, I want to show the time of 10 o'clock. So we're going to look at our little hour hand and we're going to make sure that it is pointing to the number 10 to show that it's the 10th hour. And now I want to show o'clock. And if you remember our trick, it will always be pointing to the 12. So now looking at this clock, it shows 10 o'clock. Let's try another example. Number 8. it says to show 2 o'clock. So we want to show number 2 on our hour. So that's the small hand. We want to go all the way to make sure that our small hand is pointing on the number 2. And again, I want to show o'clock again, so I want to make sure my big minute hand is pointing to the 12. Now looking at my clock, it shows 2 o'clock. Let's try another example. The next one, number 9, it says 11 o'clock. So I want to show that the hour is 11. So using my hour hand, the small one, I'm going to make sure I go all the way up to the number 11. So it's pointing and facing the 11. And again, I want to show o'clock. So I want to make sure my minute hand is still staying on that 12. Now my clock shows 11 o'clock. Another example that we have here, it says to write the time that is in between. So let's think about it, because when you do your worksheet, you're going to see an example just like this. So it says 8 o'clock first, then it says o'clock, then it says 10 o'clock. Well, looking at our big giant clock that we have here, I have 8 o'clock, right? So let me change that time, 8 o'clock. Now I have something in between, and then it goes to 10 o'clock. So thinking about that, what number did we skip over? It went from 8 to 10. The number in between that is missing there will be 9. So the time that's in between will be 9 o'clock. And here's our last example for today. So it says to solve the problem below. Sarah wakes up at 7 o'clock. Draw the hands on the clock to show 7 o'clock. And you're going to have to draw hands on a clock in the worksheet that you're doing today. So let's make sure we know exactly how to do that. So using this big clock that we have here, again, I want to make sure I have my 2 hands, my short hour hand and my long minute hand. Looking at the hour I need to show, it's the number pointing there. So I need to make sure my hour hand shows and is pointed at the number 7. So with my pen and what will be your pencil, hopefully a little straighter than Miss Everesta is doing right now, you'll make sure your short hour hand is pointing to the number 7. Now, to show the minutes, I want to show o'clock. Now, in all the examples we saw today, o'clock, that means that my minute hand is going to point all the way up to number 12. Again, we want to make sure it shows that this one is longer than my hour hand, which you can see here. Now I see that the clock is showing 7 o'clock. And that is it for today. That's our little lesson. So after watching this video, you're going to complete your packet pages, which are normally, just like we would do in school, your workbook pages, both the R and the P page for the first lesson in topic 13. I hope that you found that this little mini lesson was helpful, and I miss you guys all so much. I hope you guys are doing well. See you next time.